Hey, I'm Andy, and welcome to Rock, Roll, and Red Plaid. All right. Rock, Roll, and Red Plaid podcast. Here we are with the one, the only, the unforgettably purple Chris Tinkham. Uh, I have known Chris for going on with 5 years now, probably. And
About that.
yep, and Chris wrote the foreword to my book, the Bipolarian Homesick Blues, and has done just enough amazingly performance musical based things to be welcomed and embraced on this podcast. So thank you for doing this.
My pleasure. Happy to
I
be here.
yes, I usually ask this question first, but I feel like I already know what the answer is going to be. Who your biggest and first influence was, and I'm gonna Karen Carpenter. Uh, I'm and I'm not I remember when we did the cover for Top of the World at a function we did together. I guess my question for it is what was it about Karen Carpenter for you personally that you gravitated towards so heavily?
Well, I'm actually going to surprise you and say she wasn't my first influence in music.
Egad.
Yep. My first probably real influence and introduction to harmonies was the Lennon sisters.
Okay.
So they for from the Lawrence Welk show,
Hmm.
and they were four sisters and they had the most beautiful harmonies. And I would go into the basement and play their music on my mother's stereo
Hmm.
and listen to them over and over again. So they were actually my very first sort of introduction to four-part harmony and all that kind of stuff. But Karen came later in life. Karen's
Okay.
influence impacted me when I was about 16, shortly after she passed away.
Oh.
And her music was hauntingly beautiful, and the lyrics to her songs were relatable. Her voice is second to none, and at least in my book.
Hmm.
And she just uh, knows how to touch people with her music. And that would be what drew me to her.
Hmm. Lyrically, melodically, just kind of the whole package there,
The whole
then.
package. Yep.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people say that Richard was the genius behind the music, and it's quite possible that he was.
Hmm.
But she was the reason they were successful. It was her voice. It was the deep, rich, velvety sounds. It was
Hmm.
uh, the contra alto. It was how she could relate to the lyrics and share that relatability with other people. Those were it.
Excuse me, did she write her own lyrics or was it all Richard who was writing the material there?
So Richard wrote a lot of their songs, but he also paired up with John Bettis, and
Hmm.
Paul Williams wrote a couple of their songs.
Okay. Because I found it hard and myself sometimes, but there's a guest I had on a while back named Eliza Smith, who she insists on writing and performing her own material for the primary reason that it's very difficult for her to relate to someone else's songs and make it
Mm,
translate through a performance.
that makes perfect sense to me. I
Yeah,
do think that Richard knew his sister well enough to know what was uh, what would make her sound as beautiful as she did. If you listen to some of her solo stuff, and I feel like this is such sacrilege for me to say or do, um, her solo stuff isn't the caliber of what she did with Richard.
it's sounding more and more in parallel with an artist that I really related to was Phil Lynott from Thin Lizzy, where yes, the twin guitar harmonies were there for the quote unquote music nerds and stuff, but those fantastic Irish working class lyrics came from Phil and all those
Hmm.
just fantastic. And they all swung. They were almost like ballroom dance songs, but as hard rock, you know.
Yep.
And his solo albums did not have that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's something missing. I think a lot of the solo songs that she sang were in a higher register, and for me, it's her lower register that brought the world to the knees, if you will. It's
sure.
what made the difference. But her, I mean, she's beautifully in tune. She has perfect pitch, but the
Mhm.
higher register doesn't even compare to when she sings low.
Knowing in your office that you have a framed picture of Karen in the like in the doorway there, I think that says it all, really.
Yeah, it does. It does.
When we went and did at the Winter Island show about a couple of years ago, we did Top of the World, which I hope we find the footage
The
today.
world looking down on creation, and the only explanation I can find is the love that I find ever since you've been around. Your love's put me at the top of the world. Nice.
It was really fun because I remember that song being a challenge for the primary reason that there's not really actually guitar in the recording.
Right.
It's piano, lap slide, drums, bass, not really a six string. So for me to having it translate, you kind of looked at me at first like, what is it? And then I started playing it and you go, oh, wait a second. Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Because let me back up even further, actually.
Okay.
Uh, when did you really become comfortable singing out just not to yourself? Like, when did you really start being interested in performing?
I always liked to sing, but at one point in my life, when I was in my mid-teens, somebody told me I couldn't sing. And I took that to heart until I was in my senior year in high school and I was singing in chorus.
Hmm.
And the director was, he was doing his directing and everything. And all of a sudden he like stopped the chorus and he goes, start again. And we all started again. And you could see with his ear, he was trying to find somebody whose sound hit him.
He's picking
And
something
all of a
out.
sudden yeah. So all of a sudden he's standing in front of me, looking at me. And he just, stopped the chorus again. I think he made me sing with somebody else,
Hmm.
just the two of us. And he was amazed. It took me off guard. I didn't expect that. Um, so that sort of helped rebuild the confidence. But I also uh, sang in the Miss Teen pageants. That was my,
Really?
um, yeah, that was my uh, talent. They all have to have
Okay.
talent. I sang in the Miss Teen. And then I think when I was in college, I sang at talent shows and stuff. After I graduated college, everybody started asking me to sing in weddings and all
Okay.
kinds of venues. So, and then I had always wanted to do something different. And that's when I ended up doing four-part harmony with the Sweet Outlines.
Picking out the parts, I'm sure, can be like, following a map that has four different roads. It feels like which road am I on and which road do I have to stay on? That's the way I kind of envision it. So, like, I guess from vocal groups have always stunned me, whether it be purely vocal groups such as like Boys to Men or Backstreet Boys or any those are more popular vocal bands, but even how do you pick what part to do? That's my whole thing. It's like how do you stick to it? It's like I know what I'm doing here if I play guitar, but it's like it's almost a mind game for me anyhow. I'm sorry I'm going on, but
No, no, no. But I mean, I think your analogy is perfect because I have a wandering ear. So if you give me a song where I know the melody, but I have to sing the bass part,
mm,
I if I stand next to another bass, I do better. But if there's a lead who's singing behind me in my ear, I will go from the bass to the lead. And I don't have the range a lead needs in the Sweet Adelines. And how they determine your part that you have to play, or sing rather,
hmm
they test you on the piano. They give you the range and they have you sing the notes.
Yep.
And I always was a bass baritone, but did do the bass way easier than the baritone.
Hmm.
And it's tough. That's why I never tried to sing in a quartet on my own, just four of us, because I was too scared I was going to follow the lead in too many parts.
I wouldn't call it necessarily cheating these days, but modern technology has definitely uh, you've seen me use these before.
Yes.
In-ear monitors have saved my life many, many times.
Yep.
Um, Not in this situation, but those are very forgiving in the sense that you can hear everything, but they're also very unforgiving because you can hear everything.
Everything, yes. It's so true. They when we used to, when I was singing with the Sweet Adeline, technology was nothing compared to what it is now. And
Mhm.
when we got our tapes to learn our part, it was always just the bass part. But now what they do is they give you all four parts and you can tune out the other three parts and try to practice and then add in the three
And
parts
like a
again
mix
and practice with them.
and mix it
So
in. Yeah.
yeah, if I had that back then, I would have been more confident, I think.
Yeah, there's I mean so many bands that add rather unique uh like I say, and I've said this to you millions of times, I love the weird hybrids of stuff. Like
Mm.
everybody's kind of, so a lot of people are not willing to be dangerous, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
There's either unconventional arrangements or harmonies or stuff. Everybody usually talks about harmonizing above, usually.
yeah.
One of my favorite bands who I've probably talked about to death, Alter Bridge. There's their singer Miles, very high rock tenor, and their guitar player Mark. Even his natural speaking voice is very low, so he harmonizes below him.
Oh, wow.
It is so weird, but as soon as you hear it, you go, "Oh, it makes sense."
Yep. Yeah,
It's one of those things where it kind of throws you for a loop at first, and then once you kind of, it's the acquired taste, or it's like, "Oh, I like this."
yeah. Well, I think that's kind of how barbershop is. Well, it's both actually, because the four parts are the tenor, who's the really super high note, the lead, who generally sings the melody,
Hmm.
the baritone, and then the bass, which are the two lower harmonies. So you actually have somebody who sings above the melody, and then two people who sing below the melody
Yeah.
in barbershop.
Yeah. Just like that. Yeah, I love stuff like this because it's the nitty gritty, and
Yeah.
this is, meanwhile, Bella's making her appearance there. This
Hey,
year's-
Bella.
First dog ever on Rock Roll and Red Plaid.
Yay.
Um, Talking about performances, and I know you've done some theater background and theater performances too. How does that, I guess, in a two-way question, how does that differentiate, but how is it similar to your vocal performances?
I think the nerves are the same for both.
Right.
Anytime you go on stage, it's you're nervous either way. I've always said that it's very funny that I actually don't like to perform musicals. I have a harder
Really?
time, yeah, because I have a harder time emoting with the singing parts than I do with the speaking parts.
Mm,
So I prefer to keep them actually both very separate. So every theater show I've ever done has been straight theater, no,
okay.
not a music. And then all the other, anything musically I've done, it's generally been just the music. Although with the Sweet Adelines, I was the MC for the chorus.
Okay.
So I would go out, speak to the audience, and then come back and sing with the chorus. So
Yeah.
that was definitely a combination.
Yeah. I've said before, if you don't get nervous at shows anymore, stop doing it because you don't care anymore.
You're right. You're absolutely right. It also,
Yeah.
for one of the things that I used to be told about theater, if you're not nervous, then you're being too cocky and you're going to mess it up.
Is this true? I feel like there's a fine line balance though. Like it doesn't translate sometimes if you don't kind of strut it a little bit. Like you kind of have to in your head believe that you got it, but not enough that you think you're invincible.
Right. Yeah. Like you can have total faith in yourself and still be a nervous wreck.
Yeah. It's
And then
like, yeah,
go
I
ahead.
just,
Go ahead, sorry.
no, it's okay. I was gonna relate. I've seen bands and guys and anyone perform and just destroy. And then they come off stage and they're like, was that okay?
Yeah.
Hello,
Yep.
you just levitated the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so many friends of mine, mostly all musicians, like I've seen them all at least do that once in these like impeccable performances, and then they're just, "Huh?" and
Yeah.
they
Again,
and you
there's
think,
like a humility to it. Like they're humble. They're humble about like their talent and they don't realize how good they are. And they're just like, well, was that okay? What do you mean, was that okay?
yeah, it's always that reassurance, like that consistent reassurance where it's like, yeah, my friend Cliff, he does his thing, and we all have better nights than others, but and I just remember one night he just levitated the room and he just looked at me and was like, "Not bad, dude. You just killed it. It was awesome."
Yeah. I
And
can
he
totally
was
see him doing that.
just not bad. But
Yeah.
I love asking this next question because it always leads to funny but also good stories. Best performance and a nightmare performance that you have personally went through, like, nightmare gig versus best gig you've
Yep.
done.
Doesn't matter like if it's singing or if it's acting.
Oh, because you've done it all. Let's
Yeah.
yeah.
So, because I have to say the best performance and the biggest nightmare performance are the same one.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, here we go.
So, I was part of a theater group called Theater to Go,
Hmm.
and they decided to do what was called the 24-hour play festival. And what they did is they got everybody together. They divided us into groups of people who wanted to be the actors, who wanted to be the director, and who wanted to be the writer. And we had 24 hours to do everything. So the other part of that is there was a prop and a line that had to be in the play.
So this is starting to sound like whose line is it anyway?
Yeah, there's definitely some improv, except with the whose line is it? There's no script. But
Right. No,
the
yeah.
writers are the ones who have to start first. So we start at 8 p.m.
Hmm.
at night.
Hmm.
They get told what the prop is, and they get told the line that has to be in the play.
Hmm.
And so then they go home and they take the next 8 hours and write a play. So the guy that was writing our play asked us all what we liked. And I made the mistake of saying I like to memorize lines. So because of that, he gave me a huge monologue.
Oh boy.
So we get the script at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to be performing at 8 o'clock that night.
Hmm.
So we had to start memorizing everything. And the director had to, we had to stage it and all of that stuff. But my monologue was so big, I kept getting afraid I was going to mess it up. So I kept practicing and practicing. Well, by the end of the rehearsal and getting ready to go on stage, I had it. I had it down cold. I was good. So one of the girls said, "Don't worry, if you forget, nobody's gonna know." Well, all right, whatever. So they were the three girls that I was doing the play with, they were on stage already, and I was the last to make my entrance. And I came
Hmm.
on and I made my entrance and I said the first line and I forgot the rest of the monologue.
Oh no.
And I stood there with my
Ah.
eyes wide and I remembered Mary's words saying, just talk. Now, usually if you're on stage and you lose your place, somebody can jump in and give you a cue to help you
Mm.
remember what you're supposed to say. This was a monologue.
Yeah,
I
you
didn't
had just
have
written
that.
this too, yeah.
Yes. So I just started spewing stuff out of my mouth. Just blah, 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 blah. Just trying as hard as I could to like find my way back in my head to the monologue. And suddenly, after I must have babbled for at least 2 minutes, it clicked and the words came back, and I did the whole dialogue. And at the end of the monologue, the entire audience erupted in applause, and they were cheering and hooting and
Right on.
hollering. And it was probably the best performance I've ever had. It was, but at the same time, it was such a nightmare. The entire script left my head, and I didn't know what I was going to do, and I just kept talking.
Yeah, I've definitely done that before too, but well, you didn't write that monologue though.
No.
Okay. I've forgotten my own lyrics on stage.
Yeah, it's scary when you do.
It's it's a little more for not forgiving, but like I I would say when in doubt Van Halen it.
Yeah.
And by that I mean there's been many instances where I see old clips of especially David Lee Roth going, I got my words, you know, and just go the crazy face, and then all of a sudden it's okay again, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe not in the theater, but in that instance, yes. But same kind of
Oh yeah,
parallel.
I mean,
Yeah,
forgetting your words no matter what is terrifying. And I mean, I got the first sentence out and I was like, I don't know what to say next. And I knew that nobody in the audience knew that. Nobody knew that I had forgotten my lines. Nobody knew I'd forgotten any of that. So that's why I just kept it. And who I was a jilted bride who was being cheated on by this monkey, which was the prop. And so the monkey, it was like a puppet monkey, and he was the prop. And the other three girls were his other fiance girlfriends. So
sounds like a Saturday night in San Francisco, if you ask me.
yeah, yep. So I just kept yelling and screaming and pretending like I was the hysterical bride, and it's on tape somewhere. I haven't found anybody to give it to me yet.
I gotta see this.
It would be, I mean, but when the audience erupted in their applause, it was the best feeling in the world. And the other three girls, when our part ended, the girls came back and they were like hugging me and telling me how awesome I did, because
Right.
they all knew I forgot because I was
Yeah,
saying stuff that they didn't know.
for sure. So that was actually both your best and worst.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
I Who would you like to collab with, whether it be music, theater, whatever? You can do a different one if you want. If you had any choice, who would you pick?
That's tough. I think, you know what, I think that the person I'd really like to collaborate with would be Bette Midler, because
Why can I see that?
she is so talented and
Hmm,
so funny. She acts, she sings, she does it all. So it would be combining both worlds.
yes.
Um, and I think she would be funny as shit to, no, can I swear on this? Sorry.
That's why we got the red plaid beepers there.
I do think she'd be funny as anything to work with, and she would think outside of the box and come up with some great things. And I would love to do a duet with her. I mean, I don't know if I could. I mean, I don't know if I could keep on track on my part, but I think she'd be great.
Yeah, that I would see that. An evening with Bet and Chris.
Yeah, yep, we would be funny.
That would, yes, I agree. Um, this is kind of a introspective question because I know you like I said, wrote the forward to my book. And you know a lot about what the music stuff I do. And I trust your opinion. So, is there something musically or written wise that I've done or have not done, should I say, that you would like to see me do?
Hmm. You know what I think you would be really good at, but I don't know if it's your style, would be some sort of like 50s hip hop or 60s hip hop. I think you would do a really good job with that. Like Betty Lou's got a new pair of shoes. I could totally see you doing that.
I Okay. I'm gonna have to look into this because, like, I love on my. It's funny you say that because on my the second album I did during quarantine, Red Guitar Chronicles, there's a cover I did on the deluxe version of a song called Rubber Room, where I purposely channeled a little bit of Little Richard. So when they said Rubber Room, I just went Rubber Woo.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I'd heard that he passed that year, but I don't think I just heard that he was ill at that point. But I'm like, forget it. I'm just gonna do the Little Richard thing. And I remember as soon as I hit it, because I was doing all the vocals in one take, and I did it, and I just remember doubling down and just like really the whole take was barely salvageable because it was such a distorted clip because I was just screaming into the tape.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. No, I can see that.
I think you've heard that one before, but
I have.
I could definitely see I'd do some 50s stuff. That'd be fun. Like doing like
Yeah, I just think that there's a component of your personality that would match that really well. I'd have to think of a really like good guitar song that from either the 50s or the 60s that you would do really well with.
Are you thinking like striped shirts, Stand By Me, that kind of era, or
No, I'm thinking of like Great Balls of Fire, Betty Lou's Got a New Pair of Shoes, something like that. I could
I
see you absolutely doing Great Balls of Fire or
uh,
Tequila.
there you
Yeah,
go. There it is.
yeah.
I'll take it.
Okay.
Alrighty. We are done. For more of my original content, visit my website, www.andyconley.com.